Tonight, we are the greatest hockey team in the world. You were born to be hockey players. Every one of you. And you were meant to be here tonight. This is your time. Their time is done. It's over. I'm sick and tired of hearing about what a great hockey team the Soviets have. Screw them. This is your time. Now go out there and take it.
First of all, it's Donald Trump, make no mistake, that is making these decisions. Elon Musk is his advisor, and he's making the advice. He's taking the time to go through line by line all of these budget items. But make no mistake, it is an elected president that's doing this effort. But second of all, when you think about where has all of this graft come from, who has been making the decisions on the regulatory side? All of that is unelected bureaucrats. They've got no problem with the bureaucrats as long as they're helping them.
I mean, the offenses keep piling up. And as I said, leaving it to the courts, number one, is a cop-out. And number two, when the vice president said something, I can't remember exactly what he said, but why should we, the court should not have the power to do this. And of course, the president over the weekend famously quoted Napoleon, when you're saving your country, you don't have to obey any law. Wow, a president of the United States quoting Napoleon about not having to obey the law.
And when you reach that moment, when you're forced to cross the president or abandon your final line in the sand, it will be these moments you remember, the concessions to a wannabe authoritarian that you were willing to entertain, the lines you allowed him to cross so you would be spared his wrath. But you will not be spared. No one is. Not the veteran, nonpartisan employees at the FBI, not the maverick moderate members of this body, not even the most extreme supporters, left out in the cold the moment they are no longer valuable to this president.
I mean, first of all, it is my opinion that the Trump administration is in clear violation of the law and violation of the Constitution. And I am deeply concerned about the efforts that the Trump administration is making that seem to be pushing us away from the basic concepts of our representative democracy. Now, I know a lot of people don't like language that strong, but what I have seen is the most profound threat to the basic concept of our republic that I have seen in my lifetime.
Well, it's astonishing, right? I mean, when you see a transgender opera in Colombia getting $7 million. Wow. You know, we had a meeting, a couple of them with Elon, and Vivek was in this particular meeting, and it got to a point where we were coming up and offering targets and prospective cuts. You know, it started just becoming laughable. I mean, we were literally laughing, saying this is unbelievable that $1 billion went to this, that $2 billion went to Afghanistan, to the Taliban while they were holding hostages, that we're teaching DEI in Africa, in Ghana and places like that where they really don't need DEI. The $57 million that went to the luxury hotel in New York. So the list just continued to go on and on and on.
We're going to need to have a critical moment in the United States where we truly start investing a great deal of money if we're going to be an economy that continues to outpace China.
I want everyone to understand weakness seems to be the dominant theme of the Trump presidency. 31 days into it, and I can't think of another president who has so quickly weakened the United States of America. And meanwhile, inflation's worse than it was when he took office. And more to the point, he's not even talking about trying to do anything about it.
Look, President Trump is obviously very frustrated right now with President Zelensky. The fact that that he hasn't come to the table, that he hasn't been willing to take this opportunity that we have offered.
Well, Trump certainly has reined in not only Walz, but also Rubio, who used to be strong against Russia in Ukraine. Don't forget, all this is insulting and alienating our European allies, too, and kind of the rejection of NATO and this cozying up to Putin with the phone call, saying he wants him back in the G7, G8, saying they're going to visit each other. That is another sideline that's going.
As a result, I call on my colleagues to insist on new elections and to decline regular interaction with the Georgian Dream dictatorship until they can fulfill their demands. In fact, the current Georgian Dream delegation today is illegitimate and has not been elected in a fair and free election as determined by election observers worldwide. Keeping that in mind, while the Georgian Dream has long-standing EU and NATO aspirations denied, we must act.
That Donald Trump, Elon Musk are doing everything they can to give tax breaks for their billionaire buddies on your back, to pay for these huge tax breaks for the billionaires, their billionaire buddies. They're cutting the things that matter to you because the way he's helping them is hurting you by taking away the things that you've come to depend on.
And that's what tonight is all about. They are laying the groundwork to cut taxes for very, very rich people at the expense of other Americans. And we're going to put that to the test. So that's why we'll offer amendments to say, don't cut Medicare, don't cut Medicaid, don't cut school lunch programs for kids in order to pay for your tax cuts for billionaires.
Instead of focusing on $2 trillion in tax cuts for the wealthiest Americans, we should work together to lower food prices for Americans across the country. That's why I call on my colleagues to support my amendment, which will ensure that there are no tax cuts for billionaires unless food prices are lowered for regular Americans.